Now we will be discussing on the next part of amino acid catabolism, that is the production of urea, okay, which is the main and the most important form of ammonia disposal. Clear? Now listen with all your attention. Actually, this disposal of urea or disposal of ammonia in the form of urea is common in all vertebrates. Okay. Now this urea cycle or the production of urea was actually the first of the biochemical steps which was discovered. Now there were two persons involved in this discovery. One was Hans Krebs, the discoverer of famous Krebs cycle or tricarboxylic acid cycle, and another is Henselt, Kurt Henselt. Okay, that's why it is also known by the name of Krebs Henselt cycle. Okay, now it was roughly discovered in 1932. Okay, as far as I can remember, it is known by the name of Krebs Henselt cycle. Now the biochemical name of this particular cycle or these biochemical steps is actually urea cycle. Now in this urea cycle there are two amino acids which are peculiar. Why I am telling these are peculiar amino acids? Because though they are amino acids, they are never found in any protein of your body. That means they are non-proteinogenic amino acids. Okay, that means in this cycle you will find two non-proteinogenic amino acids. Okay, and these two non-proteinogenic amino acids are ornithine and citrulline. Now what is the peculiarity of this ornithine and citrulline and why they are known by the name of non-proteinogenic amino acids? This is because of the fact that there is no codon for these two amino acids in our body or in anyone's body. Therefore they are what? They are non-proteinogenic amino acids. Clear? Now a very important point is this, as these are the central theme of this cycle, that's why this cycle is also known by the name of ornithine citrulline cycle. Clear? It is also known by the name of ornithine citrulline cycle. That means whenever I am talking about Krebs Henselt cycle, whenever I am talking about urea cycle, and whenever I am talking about ornithine cycle, they are nothing but same. I am talking about the same cycle. Okay. Now we will be talking in details about the ornithine citrulline cycle, okay, or urea cycle, or which is also known by the name of Krebs Henselt cycle. Clear? Now a very important point here you need to understand right now is this, that what is your aim? The aim of urea cycle is to dispose what? Ammonia, right? Is to dispose ammonia. Clear? What is the aim of this urea cycle? The main aim of this urea cycle is to dispose ammonia, which has been created by your own body, right? A very important point here you need to understand right now is this, that this ammonia will now be converted into urea. Okay, this is your aim. Okay, why? Because ammonia is highly toxic in nature and urea is less toxic. Clear? And this urea will come out through your urine. Clear? Now what is the actual site of this ornithine citrulline cycle or Krebs Henselt cycle or urea cycle? Now a very important, before I start this biological discussion and biological lecture, first you understand this, that this is very interesting. Why? Because this was actually the first biochemical pathway which was discovered. Clear? Now listen, the site actually we will divide it into two categories, that is cellular site. Now listen, actually urea cycle takes place in two places. at taking place at simultaneously. This urea cycle takes place simultaneously at two places in the cell, that is number 1 cytosol, number 2 mitochondria. Clear? But at the organ level, urea cycle is unique to liver only. It is only liver where this urea is produced. Okay? Urea cycle is unique to liver. Okay? But urea goes out of our body, leaves the body via kidney. Urea is produced in the liver, but it is excreted via kidney. Clear? It is produced in the liver, no doubt about this, but it is excreted via kidney. Clear? Okay. Now we will be discussing the details of biochemical steps of urea cycle or Krebs-Henselt cycle, or which is also known by the name of ornithine-citrulline cycle. Ornithine-citrulline are non-proteinogenic amino acids which doesn't have any codons. That's why they are not part of our protein. Okay? Suppose this is a liver cell. Clear? Suppose this is a liver cell. Okay? Now, the first point you need to understand is this. It's a cycle. That means it has no ending or beginning. But from where we will have to start understanding is from mitochondria. That means we will have to start the ornithine-citrulline cycle or urea cycle or Krebs-Henselt cycle from mitochondria. Okay? That means suppose this is your mitochondria. Suppose this is your mitochondrial chamber. I am drawing it too large. Okay? This is your mitochondrial chamber, suppose. Okay? Suppose this is your mitochondrial chamber. Okay? And this is your cytosol. Okay? This is suppose your cytosol. Okay? And this is your mitochondrial chamber or mitochondrial matrix. Clear? Okay. Now listen with all your attention. Now, first thing we need to understand is this, that before we start this Krebs-Henselt cycle or urea cycle, we will have to understand that it starts with a kick. Okay, it starts with a kick. Kick of what? Now listen with all your attention. Suppose, listen with all your attention possible. Clear? Suppose this is your mitochondrial matrix and this is your cytosol. Now, important point you need to understand is this. Within the cytosol, a compound should be produced known by the name of carbamoyl phosphate. A compound known by the name of carbamoyl phosphate should be produced so that this cycle can take place. That means the prerequisite of the urea cycle or Krebs-Henselt cycle, or I have forgotten the other name. Okay. Now, the prerequisite of this cycle is this, that carbamoyl phosphate should be present in the mitochondria itself or mitochondrial matrix. This is the prerequisite. Okay. This is the prerequisite you must understand. Okay. Now, how this carbamoyl phosphate is produced? Now, very important point is how this carbamoyl phosphate is produced. Now, carbamoyl phosphate is actually produced from bicarbonate and okay, let me tell you how this carbamoyl phosphate is produced. Okay, now listen, this is HCO3 minus, right? This is HCO3 minus, but we will have to draw the structure itself. Now listen with all your attention. So this is your this is the structure of your HCO3 minus. Okay, this is the structure of your HCO3 minus. The central carbon is in sp2 hybridized state, right? Because it is in sp2 hybridized state, right? As it is in sp2 hybridized state, therefore it is a plane triangle. right? It is having a plane triangle here, right? Now, we are not going into geometry in details, but biochemistry students need that, you know, okay, because there are many enzymes which affect this planar, you know, molecule. Now, a very important point you need to understand is this, that suppose this is your bicarbonate ion. Now, very important thing is this, that with this bicarbonate ion, you will have to merge the ammonium which is produced from oxidative deamination. Again, I will repeat myself. That is, with this bicarbonate, you will have to merge the ammonium ion or ammonia which is produced from oxidative deamination. That is removal of ammonia group from what? Amino acid. Clear? Now listen. If you don't understand what I am speaking, if this is kind of, some puzzle or something like that to you, then I will tell you just now to go to my other videos, and you must see there that what is occurring in the oxidative deamination part. Okay? Now listen with all your attention. So we will have to, incorporate amine group, ammonium or amine group or ammonia with this particular, to this particular, bicarbonate. Now how to do this? We'll do this step by step, okay? This occurs by a sequential step by step manner. Now listen, at first what will happen is ATP will give out a phosphate, and this phosphate will bind with this particular oxygen. That is, the molecule will look like this. Okay? Clear? This is actually the structure of the molecule. This is called carboxyphosphate. This is called what? Carboxy. This is called carboxyphosphate. Why it is carboxyphosphate? It's very simple. What is this? This is nothing but carboxyl group, that is COOH group, acid group. That's why it is carboxyphosphate. Why it is carboxyphosphate? Because there is one another oxygen here. Clear? This is carboxyphosphate. Now listen with all your attention possible. This carboxyphosphate, what will happen to this carboxyphosphate now? What will happen to this carboxyphosphate? Now listen with all your attention possible. To this carboxyphosphate, ammonium from oxidative deamination will bind. To this carboxyphosphate, ammonium from oxidative deamination will bind. That means what will happen is ammonia from oxidative deamination will come and will bind with this particular molecule. That means what will happen is clear? Okay? Sorry. So now what has happened is this ammonia has been incorporated here. Clear? In the form of amine group. Clear? Has been incorporated in the form of amine group. Clear? Now a very important point here you need to understand right now is this, that whenever this particular compound has been formed, it is known by the name of carbamic acid. Okay, it is known by the name of carbamic acid. Clear? It is also known by the name of carbamic acid. Okay, now with the formation of carbamic acid, what will happen is this. Another thing I have forgotten is phosphate, inorganic phosphate will come out. This inorganic phosphate will come out. Clear? Now, what happens to this carbamic acid is this, this carbamic acid will be phosphorylated. Okay, now listen with all your attention. This carbamic acid will be phosphorylated. That means clear. Now what happens is, so this is your actually the main compound, which is called carbamoyl phosphate. Okay, this is known by the name of carbamoyl phosphate. Clear? Okay, this is known by the name of carbamoyl phosphate. Okay, this is known by the name of carbamoyl phosphate. Clear? Now, important point here you need to understand is this, that from this compound, which is nothing but HCO3 minus, that is from carbonate, from bicarbonate, we have produced carbamoyl phosphate, right? Now listen with all your attention possible. Okay, from now you have learned all these steps. Now listen with all your attention. What in your book they don't show is, they don't show these steps and they directly go for these plus NH3 gives this, okay, clear? And what will they do is, they will show like this, 2 ADP are produced. Okay, that's it, that is the way they will show these things. Clear? Now listen with all your attention. That means during carbamoyl phosphate formation, why 2 ATP is required, you now understand. Clear? Now you must understand right now that why 2 ATPs are required, why we are writing here 2 ATPs, because those 2 ATPs were actually useful during the early phosphorylation steps, which actually occurred when bicarbonate was getting converted into carbamoyl phosphate. Clear? Now a very important point here you need to understand is this: for the conversion of this bicarbonate into carbamoyl phosphate, a very important enzyme is required. A very important class of enzyme is required. Now very important thing you need to understand here about this enzyme is this, that the name of this enzyme is carbamoyl phosphate synthetase 1. Now listen, this is known as CPS1. Clear? This is known by the name of CPS1. Now a very important point here you need to understand is this, that when this bicarbonate was getting converted into carbamoyl phosphate, what is the role of this carbamoyl phosphate synthesis? The role has been explained in those steps which I have just now shown. That is conversion of ATP into ADP and all these things. Okay. Now a very important point about this is this, about this particular CPS system is this, or carbamoyl phosphate synthetase is this. Carbamoyl phosphate synthetase is actually an allosteric enzyme, and it is allosterically activated by N-acetyl glutamate. Clear? N-acetyl glutamate actually activates CPS. N-acetyl glutamate actually activates CPS. Now, a very important point here you need to understand is this: CPS2 is another enzyme which is present in the cytosol. Now listen, the CPS1 is present in the mitochondria, but CPS2 is present in the cytosol. Clear? Now, CPS1 is useful for the formation of carbamoyl phosphate, that is, it is useful for urea cycle. But CPS2 is important for pyrimidine synthesis. That is what? Nucleotide synthesis. Clear? It is useful for nucleotide synthesis. Okay, now a very important difference about, with respect to CPS1 and CPS2 is this: the allosteric activator of CPS1 is N-acetyl glutamate, but the allosteric activator of CPS2, the allosteric activator of CPS2 is only glutamate. Clear? We'll talk about this when we'll be talking about, nucleotide synthesis. Okay, clear? So this is the difference between CPS1 and CPS2. There are two differences mainly. That is where they are used. CPS1 is used for urea cycle, but CPS2 is used for nucleotide synthesis. The allosteric activator of CPS1 is N-acetyl glutamate, but allosteric activator of CPS2 is glutamate only, not N-acetyl. Clear? N-acetyl portion is absent. That is, this is NAG. Okay, NAG is the, don't confuse it with another NAG. There is N-acetyl glucosamine. Okay, it is present in, bacterial cell wall. Now listen with all your attention. So this was the difference. Okay. Now, a very important point here you need to understand is this: carbamoyl phosphate actually binds with ornithine, which is already present in the cytosol as well as mitochondria. Okay, clear? So up till now we have seen that the most important thing is this formation of this carbamoyl phosphate, right? Now the very important point here you need to understand is this, that this bicarbonate has been converted into carbamoyl phosphate. Now listen with all your attention. Now this carbamoyl phosphate will now be converted into an amino acid. Okay, will now be converted into an amino acid which are not present in your body proteins. That is non-proteinated amino acid. Why they are not present in your body proteins? Because they don't have any codons for it. Okay, now listen with all your attention. So I will have to rub this thing a bit so that you can understand all other reactions which are occurring in the mitochondria. Okay, so this is your CPS1. Now how many ATP? 2 ATPs, right? Now listen with all your attention. So you have got, here is carbamoyl phosphate, right? This is a carbamoyl phosphate. Now listen, this carbamoyl group, this carbamoyl moiety will enter into ornithine. Now what is ornithine? It's an amino acid. Okay, ornithine is an amino acid. Now listen with all your attention. I am drawing the ornithine amino acid. You will have to tell me then what type of amino acid it is, whether it is acidic amino acid or basic amino acid. Okay, now suppose this is your ornithine. Okay, suppose this is your ornithine. Okay, so this is your basic structure of amino acid, that is CH, COO minus, NH2. Now listen with all your attention. If you want to really learn the ornithine citrulline cycle, the first thing you need to understand today is this, that the common structure or the common pattern of drawing every structure related to the common pattern of drawing, listen with all your attention, the common pattern of drawing all the structures related to this particular cycle is this. You will have to draw like this. This is the common structure. And if you just add another thing, this is nothing but ornithine. This is ornithine. Okay, this is ornithine. Now listen, tell me whether it is acidic amino acid or basic amino acid. Obviously it is basic amino acid, right? Now listen with all your attention. Both ornithine and citrulline are basic amino acid. Both ornithine and citrulline are basic amino acid. Now listen with all your attention. When ornithine binds with this particular thing, that is carbamoyl phosphate, then an enzyme known by the name of OTC, that is ornithine trans carbamoylase, ornithine transcarbamylase. This enzyme actually helps in the condensation of both these, compounds, that is ornithine and carbamyl phosphate. This is nothing but carbamyl phosphate, right? Now listen with all your attention. That is, ornithine and carbamyl phosphate comes together and they form citrulline. Okay. Now, how to draw citrulline? How to draw citrulline is very, very easy. Now listen with all your attention. Suppose this is your citrulline. Okay. How to draw citrulline? Now listen. This is how you draw your citrulline. Okay. This is your citrulline molecule. What has happened is, this particular structure, this thing has moved here. That's it. That's it. Apart from this particular thing, everything is same as that of ornithine. Now this is what? This is called citrulline. Now you can very well judge that citrulline having a terminal NH2 group is nothing but another basic amino acid. Clear? So what are the two basic amino acids which are non-proteinogenic in our body? Citrulline and ornithine, which are important for your urea cycle. Okay. Now, so this is your, ornithine and citrulline. Now listen with all your attention. A very important point here you need to understand is this, that ornithine, as ornithine citrulline is a cycle, ornithine actually was also present in the, cytoplasm or cytosol, right? But listen with all your attention. When ornithine comes inside the mitochondria, then citrulline leaves the mitochondria and enters cytosol. Okay. Now listen with all your attention possible. All your attention possible. That is, so what is the important role of this particular protein which is helping in transfer of ornithine as well as citrulline, but in opposite direction? It's nothing but an antiport. It's nothing but an antiport. Clear? It's nothing but an antiport system. Okay, it's nothing but an antiport system. Clear? Ornithine citrulline antiportal system. Clear? Or antiport system. Now listen with all your attention. When citrulline enters, I will have to draw the citrulline here as well, because I need this structure right now. When citrulline comes out into the cytosol of cell, then what happens is, how am I drawing these things, Now listen with all your attention. This is nothing but, every amino acid has this structure, right? Every amino acid has this structure. There is NH2, COOH, H and R, right? Now listen, what I am doing is actually, I am representing this CH as this. Clear? And I am taking this up, that is up to here, and this COOH here. Okay, this is my COOH. Now listen with all your attention. I am putting this R here. This is my R. Now listen. In case of ornithine, this whole thing was the R. The whole thing was the R. In case of citrulline, this is the R. In case of citrulline, this is the R. Clear? In case of ornithine, this was the R group. In case of citrulline, this is the R. Clear? Okay. Now listen with all your attention. Now listen with all your attention possible. Okay. So I will have to draw here so that you can understand. Okay, what is this? It looks nasty. Okay. Now listen with all your attention. So So this is, now I will be drawing the R group. Now listen with all your attention. In case of this urea cycle, all the R's contain this, CH2 whole 3, okay? All the R contains this in common. NH, C-O-O, NH2. Clear? Okay? Oh no, okay. No need to write like this. So this is your, citrulline. Okay? Now the citrulline has been pumped out of the mitochondrial matrix. The citrulline now has been pumped out of the what? Mitochondrial matrix. Now listen with all your attention possible on this earth. When citrulline has been pumped out of the mitochondrial matrix, what you will have to understand is this, that at the same time ornithine has been pumped in to the mitochondrial matrix. That is the work of antiportal system or antiport system, right? Clear? Now listen with all your attention. Now what will happen is this, suddenly a very important thing is going to happen here. Why I am telling suddenly? Because probably you will not understand now, but after some time you will understand how this is happening. Now listen, what will happen is, with this citrulline molecule, another molecule will bind, which is called aspartate. Now listen with all your attention. How to draw aspartate? Everybody knows. For aspartate, the R group is CH2COOH, right? That is, it's an acidic amino acid, right? It's an acidic amino acid. Okay? CH2COOH. So this is aspartate. Now listen with all your attention. All of a sudden, what will happen is, this aspartate will now participate in this, mechanism. This aspartate will now participate here, okay? With citrulline it will bind, okay? It will bind with the citrulline. Now a very important point you need to understand here is this, that when citrulline binds with aspartate, this is your aspartate molecule. When citrulline binds with aspartate, okay, then the molecule formed here is known by the name of, yes, it is known by the name of, you have read that in your biochemistry previously. It is known by the name of arginosuccinate. Why? It looks more like arginine, but also it looks like succinic acid. Okay, it is also known by the name of arginosuccinate. Okay, why? Because it looks more or less like arginine amino acid, but it has also got its what? Succinate like structure also. That's why it is also known by the name of arginosuccinate. Clear? So now the citrulline will be converted into arginosuccinate, right? Now listen with all your attention. If you really want to, want to really draw the structure of arginosuccinate, what you will have to do is, you will have to delete this particular structure from here now. Okay, so this is your arginosuccinate. Okay, now listen, this is NH2, just drawing it on a vertical scale. Okay, now listen with all your attention possible. So when citrulline will combine with aspartate, what will happen is this, when citrulline will combine with aspartate, what will happen is, very important point here is this, what will happen is, when citrulline will try to attach with this is citrulline. Now when citrulline will try to attach with aspartate, what will happen is this. For your sake, I am saying this formula, that remember that this H2O will move out. Suppose this H2O will move out. Okay, it is this H2O will move out. Then what will happen is this: when this H2O will move out, the whole structure of arginosuccinate will now look like this. Okay, the whole structure of arginosuccinate will now look like this. This is the structure of your arginosuccinate. Okay, this is the structure of your arginosuccinate. Now, a very important point you need to understand is this: the enzyme behind this condensation reaction is known by the name of arginosuccinate synthase. Is known by the name of arginosuccinate synthase. Now, it is known by the name of arginosuccinate synthase. Okay. Now, a very important point you need to understand is this step where a arginosuccinate synthase helps in the condensation of citrulline and aspartate. It's an ATP driven process. That means ATP will be converted to ADP. Okay, that means it's an ATP driven or active process. It's an active process. Okay, now we have successfully made arginosuccinate. Now listen with all your attention possible. Now what will happen is this: when the next step is this, that when this arginosuccinate will be lysed or will be converted into two halves, or when this arginosuccinate will be divided into two parts, what will happen is this: two different molecules will form. Now I will have to draw the cell in a bigger fashion. Okay, listen, suppose now when arginosuccinate will be lysed, then two different hands will emerge from this particular thing. Okay, two different hands will emerge from this. Okay, now what do you mean by these two different hands? Okay, that is, now listen with all your attention. When we are trying to lyse this particular arginosuccinate, then what will happen is this lyse reaction will occur or will start from here. Okay, and the enzyme involved in this is known by the name of arginosuccinate lyase. Okay, it is known by the name of arginosuccinate lyase. Now listen with all your attention. Now you can clearly see that whenever arginosuccinate has been cleaved, okay, when this is the point of cleavage, that means from here this molecule will cleave. Now listen with all your attention. We were actually transporting aspartate, or we were actually attaching aspartate with the what? Citrulline. Then we are taking out this particular part of the aspartate, only this particular portion, that is N, This N is important, right? The N which is coming from the aspartate is important. Why? Because listen with all your attention. Listen with all your attention possible on this earth. Okay? This N, this C, and this N is actually your future urea. This is actually your future urea. Now listen with all your attention. Actually, a very important point you need to understand is this. One of the nitrogen, now listen with all your attention, one of the nitrogen, which is this nitrogen has come from ammonia by oxidative deamination. Now listen with all your attention. What is the structure of, what is the structure of urea? This is the structure of urea. Now listen with all your attention. This is the structure of your urea. Now listen. One of the nitrogen has been contributed by oxidative deamination. Another nitrogen is actually contributed by, what? Aspartate. Okay? Now listen with all your attention. Why we need aspartate? Because one of the nitrogen of ammonia is lacking. That's why we need aspartate, because aspartate will actually contribute in the nitrogen of urea. Now listen with all your attention. One of the nitrogen, this nitrogen is coming from, this nitrogen is coming from, one of the nitrogen of ammonia is coming from oxidative deamination, right? And another nitrogen of urea is coming from aspartate. Okay? From where this carbon is coming? The carbon is actually coming from which side? Now listen. The carbon is actually coming from the HCO3. Okay? The carbon of urea is coming from HCO3 minus. Okay? Now, from where this oxygen will come? It will come from water molecule. We'll talk about that later. Okay? It will come from water molecule. Now listen. Now listen with all your attention. Now listen. So, we have now discussed why this aspartate is important, right? Now listen with all your attention. Suppose if this is the point of cleavage of this arginosuccinate, okay? If this is the point of cleavage for this arginosuccinate, right? If this is the point of cleavage for arginosuccinate, what we will have to understand here is this. Then one of the portion will be having this thing. That is, now listen. One of the portion will, that is this portion. This portion will now look like this. This is the, this is the C double O minus, this is also C double O minus, here is another C double O minus, here is another C double O minus. Now, what has happened is this, a double bond or a pi electron system has been introduced in between these two carbons. That's the important thing you need to understand here is this, that whenever this particular thing has been cleaved, whenever this particular thing has been cut into two pieces, then what is happening is there, this in between these two carbons, a pi electron system has been included. That means this carbon was earlier in sp3 hybridized state. This carbon was earlier in its sp3 hybridization state, but when this carbon was cleaved from arginosuccinate molecule, then these carbons became sp2 hybridized. This carbon became sp2 hybridized. Clear? Now a very important point you need to understand here is this, that this is nothing but fumarate. Right? This is nothing but fumarate. Okay? Now, what will happen here is this, what will happen in this portion is this. Keep on writing this simple thing. Now, what will happen here is this, that you need to understand is, you need to understand this simple thing, that is this particular portion will become NH2 plus. This particular portion will become NH2 plus, and there will be a carbon nitrogen double bond. Now listen with all your attention. Here, if you think that nitrogen is having sp3 hybridization, then you're wrong. Now listen, sorry, if you think that nitrogen is having 4 valencies, then you're wrong, because there is plus charge. Clear? Okay. Now a very important point here you need to understand is this. This is, you know, a very polar amino acid. This is a very polar amino acid known by the name of L-arginine. This is your arginine. This is your arginine. Okay. Now listen with all your attention. This is your arginine. Now a very important point here you need to understand is this. The enzyme in this particular case is known by the name of arginosuccinate lyase, right? Arginosuccinate lyase. Clear? Known by the name of arginosuccinate lyase. Okay? Arginosuccinate lyase. Arginosuccinate lyase. Now, a very important point and an intriguing point rather is this, that suppose this is your ornithine, okay? This is your ornithine. Now, important point here you need to understand, this is L-arginine will now be converted into ornithine by the removal of urea. By the removal of urea, it will be converted into, what? Ornithine, right? That means here. Now, this step is very, very important. Not because it is giving out urea, okay? Now, very important point you need to understand is this. The enzyme required here is this. The enzyme required here is arginase 1. Now, why I am telling this? This is a very important step, because this arginase 1 is a unique enzyme present only in the liver. Arginase 1 is a very unique enzyme because it is the only enzyme which is present uniquely in liver only. It is never present anywhere else in the body. Now listen with all your attention. Another very closely related enzyme is present in the kidney itself, which is called arginase 2. Okay, which is known by the name of arginase 2. It is arginase 1. In kidney we will find arginase 2. But this arginase 2 is helpful for, you know what? For nitric oxide formation. Not in the conversion of arginine into ornithine, but in nitric oxide formation. That's the very important difference. That is, arginase 2 is present in kidney, but arginase 1 is present uniquely only in liver. Clear? That's a very important difference here. Okay. Okay. So we have successfully, completed this whole cycle, which is known by the name of urea cycle, or Krebs-Henselt cycle, or ornithine citrulline cycle. Clear? But a very important point you need to understand is this cycle is complete, right? But we need to answer two things. Rather, one thing, that is, because we have already answered this part, we need to answer one very important thing, that is, from where this aspartate is coming. Now listen, during exam also you will think about this aspartate later. Always remember this. Whenever you are writing these things, remember this aspartate at the end of your writing. And always remember, whenever you are trying to, trying your biochemistry question, understand this very basic thing. First draw this whole thing, or first write all the conversions. First draw these biochemical steps, or write these biochemical steps. Then explain one by one what is happening. Clear? In case of urea cycle, you will have to start from mitochondria citrulline formation, then how this mitochondrial citrulline is coming outside, and then how it combines with aspartate, then how from this when combining with aspartate it has been converted into arginosuccinate, and how this arginosuccinate is converted into or lyased into or cleaved into fumarate and L-arginine, and how this L-arginine is converted into ornithine by the help of arginase 1, which is only present in liver, but there is another version of this enzyme which is arginase 2, which is present only in kidney, but it is not useful for the formation of ornithine from arginine, but is useful for the formation of nitric oxide. Okay. Now, a very important point you need to understand here is this, that how this aspartate comes here. Now, the answer lies here. Now listen, you know what is fumarate? Fumarate is a dehydrated form of malate. Now listen with all your attention. Fumarate is a dehydrated form of malate. Don't have to think about this. Go to the TCA cycle video, you will understand what is fumarate, okay, and what is malate. Now listen, actually this fumarate is nothing but dehydrated form of malate. That means malate is the hydrated form of fumarate. Malate is the hydrated form of fumarate. Oh, sorry, I have forgot to mention one thing, that you need this oxygen, right? And this oxygen comes from water, and here is actually a water molecule should be there. A water molecule should be there, and this water molecule actually gives this oxygen. Okay. Now listen. Okay, we were discussing here. Now, fumarate is actually dehydrated form of malate. So hydrated form of fumarate is malate. That means you will have to add water. Now listen, suppose here is your malate. Okay. Suppose here is your malate. Now listen with all your attention. This malate, is oxidized. This malate is oxidized into oxaloacetic acid or oxaloacetate. And a very interesting point here you need to understand is this, that this is done by malate dehydrogenase. Okay, malate dehydrogenase. Now listen with all your attention. What will happen is this, this is glutamate, this is alpha ketoglutarate. Now you know what is this. Oxaloacetate was what? A keto acid. Now a keto acid has been converted into an amino acid, and then amino acid has been converted into keto acid. What is this? This is nothing but transamination. This is nothing but the work of aspartate transaminase. You have already read in your part 1 video. Okay, this is the work of aspartate transaminase, AST. This is nothing but the work of aspartate transaminase. That's it. You should understand here. If you are confused with respect to this step, follow the first video. Follow the first video if you are confused with respect to this step. Follow your early lecture series. You will understand. Okay. So, okay, we need one. We need NAD plus NADH, malate dehydrogenase. Okay, clear? Okay, so this is actually your whole urea cycle. Clear? Now a very important point you need to understand is this, that when this urea comes into blood, then this is taken to the liver, and in the liver it is excreted out. But very important point you need to understand is this, that some urea is present in the blood itself, and this urea has been converted into ammonia by the enzyme urease, which is present in intestinal bacteria. Now listen, in general the concentration of ammonia in our blood is low. There are some ammonia which is roaming around in our body, but normally the concentration of ammonia in our body is low. But during or whenever a patient appears or whenever there is a patient who is actually suffering from kidney failure, then his or her urea levels goes up, and due to this, very important point you have to understand, and due to this, in these patients what we will see is a rise in ammonia levels, because high level of urea is there in his or her blood, which leads to conversion of urea into ammonia by urease, right? Now, this high level of ammonia in the blood is toxic and really dangerous. High level of ammonia in the blood is really toxic and dangerous. It leads to brain failure. In most of the cases, it leads to brain failure. Now listen with all your attention. What you can do? Suppose you are a medical professional. What you can do? You can do a simple thing, that is, you can kill all the bacteria present in your intestine or in his or her intestine. You can prescribe some antibiotics. That's it. That's so simple. That means in case of kidney failure patients, due to high concentration of urea in their blood, you will have to give them antibiotics so that their ammonia level in the blood doesn't increase that much. Clear? Am I clear to everyone? Okay.